My name is Myra Lark, and I am 28 years old. I live in Crescent City, where the salt from the ocean collides with the neon of nightlife. I have spent years honing my craft as a DJ, pouring my soul into every beat, trying to create a musical experience that could lift the spirits of an entire room. My passion is palpable. I can often be found in cramped spaces filled with people and the heavy bass of music vibrating through my body. However, my fervor for music often edges dangerously close to a more reckless side of my personality, my ego. Now, let me take you back to a night that truly shook my world. It started like any other Friday night at the club I regularly spun for, the Electric Wave. The lights were low, and the crowd was buzzing with anticipation. I should have felt at home, but instead, I felt the subtle strain of impatience building within me. The club manager, Dan, a burly guy with a penchant for country music that I found unbearable, came up to me with a pained look on his face. He told me I needed to play some rock and country, clearly trying to appease a group of older patrons who were complaining about the music selection. I bristled at his suggestion. Something ignited within me, a desire to assert my control over what I believed was my domain. So, I decided to push the limits. In a moment of reckless defiance, I dropped the one song that I knew would cause chaos. It was chorus-heavy, wildly popular, and it had a magic about it that stirred the crowd. As soon as the first notes rang out, the crowd erupted with a frenzied energy. People danced like there was no tomorrow, losing themselves in the moment, lost to the sound and lights. But I soon realized that summoning this kind of inferno comes with its own wildfire consequences. The atmosphere became electric, but control slipped through my fingers like sand. Security struggled to maintain order as gangly bodies collided, drinks spilled everywhere, and chaos erupted. I was riding high on the adrenaline, but I could see Dan's face storming like a brewing tempest. His expression told me I had gone too far. I laughed in defiance. How could I possibly stop now? But the inevitable happened. What began as spirited fun turned into a veritable circus of wildness, and before long, the entire club felt like it was about to explode. By the time the music faded, the restless crowd was no longer dancing. They had turned on me. A throng of angry patrons cornered me outside the club, their voices a cacophony of blame. The fear coursed through my veins, but my ego spurred me on. I was not about to back down. Instead of diffusing the situation, I channeled my frustration into an act of false bravado. With a puffed chest, I struck a pose I thought would intimidate them. I could feel the tension in the air shift, and in that moment, I made perhaps the biggest mistake of my life. I decided to prove my toughness. Punching a wall felt like the action of a hero in a rock song, and I swung my fist with all the misguided zeal I could muster. The moment my knuckles collided with the unforgiving concrete, a blinding pain shot through my hand. I stared in horror as I realized I had shattered my pinky knuckle. The laughter from my audience barely registered above the ringing in my ears as I cradled my swollen hand, panic washing over me. I stood there, attempting desperately to maintain my facade. The wall, like the fierce rush of irony, seemed to bark a silent chuckle. In that instant, I felt like an utter fool. Instead of showing them I was strong, I only highlighted my own weakness. I had thought the crowd would respect me for my audacity, yet instead, they reveled in my humiliation. They got their revenge silently, with scoffs and jeers, while I internally berated myself for letting my ego drive me to such a foolish act. Did I deserve this cruel twist of fate? After the chaos died down, the adrenaline faded, and the reality of my situation began to set in. I hobbled back home, my throbbing hand a constant reminder of my failings. I was injured and embarrassed, and echoes of laughter replayed in my mind. I realized that maybe my stubbornness had gone too far. Maybe I should have just taken my beatings and walked away. The following days were a blur of discomfort as I attempted to navigate my everyday life with a busted hand. My work slipped, and I felt frustration pooling like the ocean outside my window. I hated how Dan treated me like a child. How dare he dictate what I should play? My pride had taken a bruising blow along with my hand. I felt lost within my own world, feeling unworthy and small. I needed to reclaim my autonomy, but the question was, how? Weeks passed, and I watched as other DJs garnered the spotlight while I nursed my injury. My identity felt tethered to my pain, but my insatiable desire to prove myself gnawed at me. I needed a plan, an idea that would send a powerful message not only to my nemesis Dan, but also to the naysayers who thought my story was over. Gradually, I began to work on a project. a set of my own, a medley built with everything that screamed Mira Lark. My fingers danced over beats and melodies in my mind as I envisioned the perfect deconstruction of the night I had fallen from grace. I envisioned a night where I would reclaim the stage, but this time, it would be on my terms. As I concocted my plans, I could see the pieces falling into place. I contacted some friends within the industry, reminding them of the energy I brought to the dance floor. They remembered, and soon enough, we put together a one-night event that drew in patrons far and wide. The Electric Wave would host a special evening called Mira Lark Takes Back the Night. The moment I stepped back into that club, I could feel the air thick with expectation. I stood backstage, heart pounding, knowing I had something powerful to prove. When the lights went down, the anticipation became palpable, and with a deep breath, I stepped onto the stage. With every song I played, songs I had lovingly curated, I could feel the energy change. It was electric, the beats resonating in sync with the hearts of the crowd. The audience lost themselves in the rhythms I crafted, dancing freely and unabated. For the first time, I felt unchained from the shackles of my past. I was not just a DJ, but a force of nature. That was when I saw Dan in the back of the room. I could see his face, a blend of disbelief and anger as the crowd reveled in my music. He was no longer my manager, but a mere spectator in my story. In that moment, I realized I was no longer tied to his expectations. I had taken back my stage, turning every note into a battle cry. As the night unfolded, I watched the crowd dance, their faces illuminated and full of joy, and I felt alive again. After my performance, as I made my way backstage, I heard laughter, but this time it was different. Patrons were buzzing with excitement, praising my set. I felt buoyed by their words, the validation drowning out the previous echoes of ridicule. Before the night ended, I took a moment to reflect. I saw Dan attempting to blend into the background, his shadows shrinking into insignificance. I realized my confrontation with him was not through anger but through empathy. Instead, I achieved my revenge indirectly. I had returned to claim my space. Just as I had once lost control, I had now regained it and forged a new beginning. As weeks turned into months, I found myself reclaiming my identity. With each new set, I became stronger, not just in skill but in spirit. I became a mentor for new DJs who faced their challenges and encouraged them to stand tall against their own insecurities. So, did I get my revenge? You could say I did, but it was not about punishment. It was about empowerment. Dan had underestimated me, but I had turned my ego, my previous weaknesses, into the very fuel that lit my fire. I emerged not just as a survivor of that chaotic night, but as a vibrant phoenix rising from the ashes, ready to take on whatever came my way next. In the end, it was not about him getting his comeuppance. It was about shaking off the dust, embracing my true self, and creating a new legacy filled with rhythm, resilience, and respect.